Japan stands out in many ways, but one particular statistic sets it apart from any other country in the world. Despite being one of the most populous nations, it has an almost 0% homeless population rate. This is in stark contrast to the United States, which is currently experiencing a major homelessness crisis, with the number of people living on the street rising every year. Japan seems to have found a solution to a societal issue that was previously thought to have no real solution. However, if one looks beyond the headlines, the situation in Japan starts to look very different. In reality, the seemingly amazing success of Japan's 0% homelessness rate reveals a disturbing and dark reality about life in Japanese society and what is really going on beneath the surface. So, how did Japan achieve this 0% homelessness rate, and why is it actually not good news for the country? This is the dark secret of how Japan solved homelessness. Official statistics state that Japan, a country with a population of over 125 million residents, has approximately 3,000 homeless people, which is about 0.003% of its population. This rate is significantly lower than other countries with low homelessness rates, such as Switzerland, and miles ahead of countries like the United States. The reasons often mentioned as the cause of this extremely low rate are numerous. One reason for Japan's extremely low homelessness rate is that being homeless is actually very difficult in Japan, and the Japanese culture stigmatizes it heavily. According to the founder of a non-profit organization that supports the homeless in Japan, there is no culture of compassion for homeless people in the country. They are often seen as people who only have themselves to blame for their situation and who deserve no help at all. This stigma is even stronger because the majority of homeless people in Japan are men who are traditionally expected to be self-reliant. Their failure to do so is seen as a source of shame, both by the public and by themselves. Consequently, in many countries, the authorities create obstacles to prevent homelessness. Public begging is outlawed, and homeless individuals are often removed from public view. For instance, Tokyo is notorious for implementing anti-homeless measures, such as locking parks at night to prevent sleeping and designing benches and other city features that are deliberately uncomfortable to discourage prolonged sitting or lying down. These measures make it challenging and socially unacceptable to be homeless, thereby contributing to the low incidence of homelessness, as it is a situation that most people try to avoid at all costs. Japan's unique policies also play a crucial role in reducing homelessness, despite not being explicitly designed for this purpose. The country has strict drug laws that are far more severe than those in most other countries, with only 1.6% of the population having tried non-alcoholic drugs in their lifetime, in stark contrast to the 46% of Americans who have done so. Consequently, drug addiction is almost non-existent in Japan, which is a significant factor according to Tom Gill, a social anthropologist based in Japan. Additionally, Japan's robust healthcare system is vital, given that 30 to 35% of homeless individuals in the United States have a mental illness. In Japan, people with severe mental illnesses are usually placed in mental health institutions, while in the United States, they often end up on the streets. Lastly, Japan has relatively accessible housing due to its construction policies. Unlike most developed democratic countries, where building housing has become increasingly challenging due to various regulations, Japan has taken the opposite route. It has minimal restrictions, making it easy to build anything and, consequently, relatively affordable. This is mainly because Japan builds more houses than any other developed democratic country, resulting in a constant supply of new housing options. The aforementioned factors suggest that Japan has successfully addressed the problem of homelessness, but the reality is much bleaker. While the official statistics indicate low rates of homelessness, there are many more individuals without a home in Japan. However, they remain hidden from view and are not reflected in government statistics. The question then arises as to how this can be possible. When both the stock market and the real estate market crashed in the 1990s, Japan experienced a serious economic crisis. The subsequent years saw millions of people forced to survive on low-paying, temporary, and part-time jobs, while finding a secure, well-paying job became incredibly difficult. Unfortunately, a large number of them failed to bounce back from this economic downturn and went on to become known as Japan's lost generation, with no social standing, place in society, or aspirations for the future. Consequently, many individuals from the lost generation were unable to maintain an apartment and pay rent every month, even in a relatively affordable country like Japan. However, they were also unwilling to live on the streets to avoid the shame and stigma from society. As a result, a new phenomenon emerged, known as the cyber homeless. In essence, Japan has a broad network of 24-hour internet and manga cafes where individuals pay hourly rates and can stay as long as they desire. Since the 1990s, members of Japan's lost generation have started using these cafes as temporary shelters. Though the cafes don't provide beds, people often sleep in their computer cubicles. Over time, the cafes have expanded their services to include food, drinks, even fresh underwear, and showers. Over time, this trend has developed into a self-sustaining industry, and today, cyber cafes have become a unique Japanese concept of commercial homeless shelters that individuals have to pay for themselves. However, this option is not particularly cheap, as prices for an overnight stay in a small booth range between $17 to $28. These net cafe refugees, as they are known in Japan, often have low-paying part-time or temporary jobs that don't pay enough to rent an apartment, yet they still cannot afford to pay for a few hours in an internet cafe every night. The net cafe refugees may be homeless, without a permanent address or home, and excluded from many aspects of life. However, they don't appear as such because they don't sleep outside. Instead, they work and do everything they can to make a clean, well-kept appearance and polite demeanor to avoid the shame that comes with being homeless in Japan. The Japanese government's official statistics on homelessness are believed to be grossly underreported, with non-governmental organizations estimating that the number of individuals living on the streets is at least 3 times higher than the official figures. Furthermore, these estimates do not take into account the cyber homeless population, who spend several hours each night in internet cafes. If these individuals were included, the actual number of homeless individuals in Japan would be significantly different. In Tokyo alone, it is estimated that at least 15,000 people live in cyber cafes, which is 5 times the official number of homeless individuals in the entire country. On one hand, the emergence of cyber homelessness could be viewed as a positive development, since it enables individuals to avoid the lowest rungs of society and maintain some level of dignity despite lacking a permanent residence. However, this phenomenon also underscores the significant challenges facing Japanese society. Approximately 1/3 of Japan's workforce, over 22 million people, are employed as part-time or temporary workers, not by choice, but due to the inability to secure a full-time job. Although not all of them are homeless, most receive only the minimum wage and find it difficult to avoid regular rent, with little prospect of improving their economic situation. Thus, despite Japan's significantly lower official homelessness rate than that of the US, the percentage of people living in poverty is higher in Japan. While only a minority end up living on the streets, a large number remain on the periphery of society, residing in cyber cafes and capsule hotels, caught in a vicious cycle of being unable to secure a regular job to obtain an apartment and unable to obtain an apartment to get a stable job. Due to social pressure, they prefer to stay invisible, and society also prefers to keep them out of sight. A problem that is kept hidden can easily be ignored, allowing the government to continue claiming a 0% homelessness rate. However, this issue is a representation of everything that went wrong with the Japanese economy, and is an issue that is here to stay, as the number of invisible homeless people is expected to continue rising. What do you think the Japanese government should do for these people? Should they even do something? In light of how Japanese culture is over there, comment your thoughts below. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to stay up to date with our latest uploads.